Hi. I think it's important now that people seriously start thinking about 5G and paying some attention, because there's been a lot of horrible things happening in our world, and precisely because, well, it isn't really that people aren't paying attention, because people are paying attention. They are aware, but they're also ignorant, in the sense that, yes, they are ignoring the information. They're ignoring the risk, they're ignoring the problems, they're ignoring the crimes. And it's been going on for a long time. And so the crimes just get worse and worse, and the criminals get more and more bold. And tyranny gains ever more power. And people become complacent in the face of it, because it's throwing stuff at them as it's rolling along, like, hey, look, here's a load of mobile phones while we develop our latest technology, and, while we go and kill people in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya in your name with your taxes. And hey, here's some austerity and homelessness, and oh, look, we're removing your healthcare. Everything's becoming corporatised, but look, a few iPods, and look, you've got your tablets now, and so it goes on. Well, I'm going to tell a little story here. It's a true story of over a year of my life that I spent, I mean, not focused on entirely on this, but, it was over the course of a year that it took me to deal with this complaint with the BBC. And it basically started by a news programme shown on BBC News, primetime news, 6 years after Fukushima. And they were basically, or was it 5 years on, something like that, Fukushima 5 years on. And there was an alleged top nuclear expert in a Fukushima district with the BBC reporter, Michael Winger, I think his name was, or Rupert Winger. I'm sorry if I've got his name wrong, but, I'm just going on memory. And they were walking through this Fukushima district, and he took out a Geiger counter. Rupert takes out a Geiger counter, and there's a reading shown. It's like, on air, 3 meters or 3 foot above the ground, and he shows this reading, and you can see it very clearly on the screen. That is the reading. And she says, oh, yes, well, that's only about 1 millisievert a year. So, with normal background radiation of 2 millisieverts a year, I mean, basically, it's nothing to worry about at all. People need to come back, the place is falling apart, and blah, blah, blah. So basically, the BBC was saying, look, there's nothing to worry about. People, come back and live in Fukushima. It's perfectly safe. So then I discovered very soon after that, because I started checking around about this, because I don't trust the BBC. And so I was looking to see, well, what is really the situation there. And Professor Christopher Busby, he is fantastic. And so he writes articles for the European radiation news or something like this, and or was it Eco News? Anyway, he wrote an article about that BBC coverage, and he explained that the reading that was given off that Geiger counter was actually amounts to 26 millisieverts a year, not just 1 millisievert a year, but 26 millisieverts a year. Well, so I was really disgusted, and I checked out Professor Busby's figure, and looked at it, checked it out, and yes, he was absolutely right. does amount to 26 millisieverts a year. And so I got back in touch. I actually got in touch with Professor Busby and explained to him, well, I've got a complaint going on, I'll be complaining to the BBC about this, and I'm going to be sending your figure there, and yes, I'm really disgusted. And so I got in touch with the BBC and made a complaint, a formal complaint, explaining that, look, this is lying to people, and 26 millisieverts of radiation a year is equivalent to 260 chest x-rays. And that's a very serious thing, that especially you're asking families to move back there. So, a pregnant woman, that means that she, for the year of her pregnancy, before, during and after, she's going to be subject to 260 chest x-rays, and then her child as well for 9 months is being subject to the same. And then the child, once the child is born, both of them, how many chest x-rays will that child have had by the time they reach 10 years old? And, how can anybody say that this is safe? And I would like you to now present another news feature explaining that that figure was wrong, and explaining that, no, you don't recommend that families go back and live there, you see. So this went on a roundabout. At first they refused to accept my complaint, and so then I ended up having to go to the BBC Trust, and then the BBC Trust sent my complaint back to complaints again, and then I went back to the BBC Trust, and the BBC Trust was saying, well, in such and such, there's natural background radiation that's really high, and that doesn't affect women. So then I had to explain to the BBC Trust that, look, when you're talking about natural background radiation, that's non-ionising radiation. It doesn't enter into the human body and start messing about with our DNA. Okay? It's the difference when you're talking about nuclear radiation from a nuclear power plant. It is the difference between a real gun firing real bullets that's going to get right into your flesh, and a plastic, a toy gun firing plastic bullets that's just going to bounce off you, you see. That is the difference. So please don't talk to me about exceptionally high levels of background radiation, non-ionising radiation. We're talking about serious nuclear, highly charged particles, okay? And you have advised, so you need now to do another news presentation explaining this, that you got it wrong, and explaining the facts to people, not spinning a line to people. So they then got back to me and said, yes, we agree, we've taken the news report down, so the video was removed, and it said underneath, this video has been taken down, this news report, because there was an error in the radiation levels that was given. That was it. They didn't explain what the error was, or what the significance was, that, oh, we'd said that there was that people, if people come and live here, they'll only be subject to 10 chest x-rays a year, but actually they would have been subjected to 200 chest x-rays a year, 260 chest x-rays a year. You see, they didn't explain that. And the BBC were, so then when I complained, I said, no, this isn't good enough, because you have given advice to millions of people. I'm paying your licence fee. You've given advice to millions of people. Bad advice, dangerous advice. You need now to put that right. So it was back to the BBC Trust again. And the BBC Trust are saying, yeah, but, the limit for radiation levels now is 20 millisieverts. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, BBC, because prior to Fukushima, that level of radiation, 20 millisieverts a year, is what a nuclear power plant worker the limit of what a nuclear power plant worker would be permitted to receive over the course of 5 years. And your alleged top nuclear expert has just recommended that families which would include pregnant women being subject, and children being subject to the same amount of in fact, no, 6 millisieverts more radiation than people working in a nuclear power plant would expect to receive in 5 years. And they've done that after a nuclear accident, a nuclear catastrophe. And you, BBC, are supporting them and are advising people that yes, this is safe, when we know it isn't safe. So I got so frustrated because, like I say, all of this took over a year, back and forth, and in the end I contacted NHS maternity professionals, hospitals and stuff like this, and I contacted a few, and I emailed them and said, would you recommend that a pregnant woman has a chest x-ray? And all of them got back to me, oh no, of course not. We don't recommend any x-rays for pregnant women, especially not a chest x-ray, unless it's really necessary, but no, we don't actually recommend that at all. Not one chest x-ray. So then I got back to them and explained the situation. After they'd contacted me, I got back, explained the situation I'm having with the BBC, and I said, would you please support this issue, and will you please write and explain to the BBC that you're very concerned that the BBC is recommending that women in Japan get subjected, pregnant women, it's perfectly safe for them to be subject to 260 chest x-rays a year, because that's what 26 millisieverts of man-made nuclear power radiation amounts to. And you're talking about a lot worse kind of particles than are in an x-ray. Don't forget there's plutonium all over the place as well, so that doesn't measure on a Geiger counter. Not one of them supported me, and I was really upset. I was actually devastated, because I realised, well, who are these people then? These health workers. What are they? Are they robots? Do they just get plugged in when they go to work and then they plug themselves out and that's it? Their concerns for healthcare, for women, for pregnant women, that's it. It is just a job. It's just money in the bank, and that's it. They don't need to think further than that. They don't need to think about the BBC that they are funding and is lying to people across the world and advising people to put themselves and their children and their unborn babies in danger. And they know it. They know it because that's their job. Their job is advising pregnant women not to have more than one, not even to have one x-ray. But they don't mind that the BBC that they're paying for is lying to people and encouraging pregnant women and children to be subjected to 260 chest x-rays a year. The equivalent of, it's the same thing. Because 1 millisievert amounts to 10 chest x-rays a year. So that disturbed me. But it shouldn't have done, really, because I'd already hit that problem with children's rights. You see, right into professionals after professionals after professionals, trying to get somebody to say, yes, this is outrageous, actually. I want answers to these questions as well. You see, but not one professional will help. But, okay, child abuse. People don't want to talk about it, even the people involved in it. But, well, the people involved in allegedly trying to address it. But when it came to this, I really believed that the NHS would speak out and that they would contact the BBC. But they just didn't. And I did feel heartbroken because I thought, that's it. There's absolutely nobody there. These professionals, they're just robots within this system. They aren't really intelligent people. They've got no connection to compassion. They've got no connection to their humanity. They just don't want to none of them, all of them, are afraid of getting into trouble. They're all children at school doing their homework, doing their work. None of them want to get into any trouble. None of them want to ask a question. So, this, and the point of me sharing that story is to highlight the exact situation with 5G. That we've got the professionals there explaining that it's dangerous, you see. Now, all the establishment at the moment are claiming, oh, but it's non-ionising. It's non-ionising radiation. Well, I'm sorry, you can't really compare this electromagnetic frequencies to electromicrowave frequencies, sorry. You can't really compare them to radiation in that sense, because this stuff does penetrate the body. It does cause damage. We know that. It does cause cancers. And it damages insects. It kills birds. It is a damaging thing. And even before its rollout, just in preparation for this 5G coming, they're already chopping down our trees. As the people across Britain, we know it. The people across Europe, they know it. They're witnessing trees being chopped down all over the place to make way for this 5G rollout, you see. And it's a very insidious thing, because it's something that could be ramped up to be used for a weapon. It could be weaponised. It's definitely going to be spying on us like nobody's business. And it does have health impacts. And it does affect insects and wildlife, and they want it. Every square mile, basically, there's going to be a 5G, even rolling across the countryside. There's going to be no place spared from 5G. I mean, this is really serious. And then you start asking yourself, well, where did they get the money? I mean, how much money is it going to cost to produce all of these 5G poles that are going to have to be every few metres from each other? Because it's actually a weaker form of frequency than 4G, because that's all on a mast, like high above. Whereas these things, because it's a weaker frequency, they need so many of them. They need even more of them. So it's like, what? So who has the trillions then to invest in planting these things all over every nation, every land? Where is this money coming from? And so if they've got money for that, for putting these posts that we don't even actually need, because 4G is working perfectly fine, okay? So if they've got these things that we don't actually need, they've got all this money for this, then why haven't we got no money to sort Fukushima out? Why haven't we got money to end poverty? You see? But every nation has got money for this. So what power is this going to be serving? What power is it going to be serving? But we are collectively, like I say, living in that same situation as I experienced, where you've got all your professional people who are being informed about what's going on by the public, and they're just sat there now. You see, and the public, we can shout like Mark Steele can scream till he's blue in the face. Nobody's really. People on the ground are taking notice of him, but the councils aren't taking any notice of him. The government isn't taking any notice of him. Other top professionals that could speak out aren't speaking out. So then this thing's just going to be rolled out, isn't it? You know. I'll leave you all these links that I have here. And, you know, this is a typical one. They're attaching them to LED lights. And I'll leave you Mark Steele's video. He shows you the power of them. These things are seriously high power. And, as I say, to compare it to ionising, non-ionising radiation, I'm sorry, you can't really talk about it in those terms, because it does impact on blood cells, on the fluid in our bodies. It does impact on insects and birds. These are the serious risks. You know, this is from scientists. This is from scientists. 180 scientists and doctors from 36 countries. We are very concerned that the increase in radiation exposure by 5G leads to damage that cannot be reversed. And it could be ramped up to be weaponised, to keep for crowd control. Who knows? Would you even know if you're being blasted by microwaves? So Brussels does not go ahead with 5G due to health concerns. You see, because people have spoken to it. People are speaking out. But who's speaking out in Britain? You know, instead, oh, we can't wait. Vodafone 5G is coming to 19 UK places this year. Yay! It is really serious. Now, this letter is from former military and intelligence officials' letter on 5G risks. In a letter released Wednesday, 6 former combatant commanders and intelligence chiefs outlined grave concerns about risks posed by Chinese-developed 5G networks, including espionage, constraints on US military operations, and threats to democracy and human rights. The letter is available here and below. So, you know, they're talking about the reason for concern. There is reason for concern that in the future the US will not be able to use networks that rely on Chinese technology for military operations. I mean, they're talking about getting data. If China is invited by foreign governments to build these networks, Beijing could soon have access to the most private data of billions of people, including social media, medical services, gaming, location services, payment and banking information, and more. This information will give China's repressive government unprecedented powers of foreign influence to favour authoritarian allies, coerce neighbouring countries seeking to preserve their sovereignty, and punish human rights activists the world over. This will make authoritarian governments more powerful while making liberal states more vulnerable. So they're talking about China's developing this thing, or is China going to be employed to produce the 5G technology? Because imagine how many of these 5G poles they're going to need, and where are they going to look to for the workforce, the largest workforce on earth in one place, and the cheapest workforce? Well, obviously China, you see. So they're going to exploit the Chinese people even further than they've already been exploited right now, because they really are riding on the back, and it does anger me so much the suffering of the Chinese people who are in these factories is absolutely abominable. Making our clothes, making our shoes, making our iPods, you name it, they're making it. They're being paid a pittance. They're literally wage slaves. I mean, it is terrible. It's terrible. And meanwhile, we in Britain, countries like Britain, all our factories have closed down because they don't want to pay us a living wage for us to make our own shoes on our own soil. No, no, you lot can all go away, you know. We're off to China to exploit the workforce there, and we'll import your shoes. It's going to cost us a fraction of the price because we can get people to work for pennies out there. You know, this is what is going on, isn't it? And they wouldn't be able to do it. You see, they wouldn't be able to afford it if they were making this technology in Western countries. And then the workforce would know exactly what was going into it, wouldn't they? And they'd start talking, you see. No, people, I tell you, this is serious, and they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to get away with it, and people aren't going to. It's not going to hit people how dangerous this is until it's out there on the doorstep, and they're witnessing the damages of it. And then, oh, it'll be too late then, because you won't even be able to get out to protest because they've got their weaponised stuff outside your front door, literally. Because this stuff can be weaponised. Mark Steele makes no bones about it whatsoever. He explains it is a weapon, it's a military weapon. And he shows the power of it, you know. So this is something we do need to think about, because this is operating by stealth, and our counsellors are a set of eggheads. They are this plug in, switch on, plug out, switch off. Oh, I'm at home now. That's it, you know. Give them a wad of cash and they'll sign anything. As we know from just looking around at our own city centres, they're prepared to sell us down the river. They'll look what's happened in our towns and cities. How many healthy trees have been chopped down? Trees that were absorbing carbon, that were producing oxygen for us. That's all we need to know, that already before this thing's even come, they've had to chop down the trees, because trees block the signals, you see. So they chop down the trees, the bushes. They've been stripping everywhere they've been doing this. Hedgerows, they're killing our birds. I mean, look, we're dealing with absolute crazy people, and it's all going down because people aren't taking responsibility outside their jobs. They're all like kids at school. It's literally a generation of school kids. Oh, I'm just here to do me work. There you go. Look, I've spelt it all right. I've got ticks for everything. But we need to act. We're not just here to work for a boss to please somebody. We are here to pay attention, to be aware, to be active. Otherwise, we're ignorant. And it is ignorance that is allowing this, because this cannot happen until we are assured that it is safe, until we have assurances until we know exactly what it is. It cannot be permitted. And stupid people will sit quietly by and they will allow it to happen because they're paying for it. We're all paying for this. Apparently, the world is in debt. The banking system had collapsed. They've had to create money for us to borrow, to bail them out. That's how insane it is. That's how insane it is that they've had to create money for us to borrow to bail the banks out. And that our children are expected to pay back. But they've got money for this. They've got money for this. I don't think we should trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Them being this insane, self-appointed elite. They are crazy. I don't like the levels of power that this gives them, even if it's only just to spy on us. You know, and we're going to be bathed in these. We're going to be bathed in these microwaves. Literally. But it's the same story, isn't it? That the people are there explaining the issue, but nobody's prepared actually to do anything. You know, all it would have took was two of those top NHS officials that I wrote to, just even two of them, to add their voice to my complaint and say, yes, I stand by this lady. What she's saying is right. I'm very concerned. And that one of them contacts a newspaper and starts talking about it. Because, you know, the newspapers listen to people like them. They don't listen to people like me. But they do listen to top NHS health officials who are saying, oh, I'm really concerned about this. Oh, top NHS officials. And all of the nursing staff say at the maternity hospital, one of them that I contacted could have got together and signed a petition, signed a letter to the BBC. No, we're very unhappy about this. And made a fuss about it. And forced the BBC's hand then to say, make a public apology and apologise to the people of Japan, because the people of Britain care. But we don't care. We can't even care about ourselves and our own children. And to think I got kicked out of Sheffield Trees for Action group because I mentioned that, you know, there's a method in the madness that these trees are being felled to make way for 5G. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. But no, now we know, people know, it's a fact. It's a conspiracy fact. And we're living in a world of conspiracy fact. I mean, I don't want to believe. I don't want to believe the stuff that is coming to me, but what choice do I have? Except to accept reality. Yes, it's scary, but I think it's less scary to face it and to do something about it than it is to bury my head in the sand and switch off. You see, I was forcibly switched off for years. So I had to turn myself on again, you know. But I tell you, living with this level of apathy, it is disturbing. It is disturbing. Look, people, just because this system has judged you dead doesn't mean to say that you are dead. Okay, look, you're not in your coffin yet. Do something. Act. Be alive. Be aware. Do something outside of your day-to-day routine. Actually do something. Lose the fear of stepping out of the school lines. We need to do that. We need to do that. We need to ask questions. We need to stop this. This needs to be stopped. It's an infringement on our human rights. It's an infringement on our privacy. It's a risk and it's a danger. and we have a right to be absolutely sure that it is safe. And that it isn't going to be killing insects and causing cancers and nosebleeds and all kinds of problems, health problems in people. We need to know that before we have it outside our children's bedrooms. You see? This is what I mean about when I say to people, it's time to wake up, because you're asleep, but you can hear some sounds through your dream, some shouts in your dream all of a sudden, maybe a slight whiff of smoke. And either you wake up and you go and check to see if there's a fire that needs putting out, but you put it out, or you manage to escape with your life and save your children and your pets. Or you just keep on sleeping. Oh, it's nothing, just go to sleep. And wake up to a wall of flames. You know? Do we take that risk? Do we take the risk? Well, apparently, we'll risk it, won't we? Like we did with the nuclear power, just accept what they say. Yeah, of course there's never going to be a melt through. It's never going to get to that. So first we get Chernobyl, then we get Chernobyl times 100, really, with Fukushima. So, look, I I think that we need to stop, like I say, just stop this now, and that will take professional people getting on board. And we do need to understand that, look, these risks are so serious that no health insurance corporation, like Lloyd's for example, no health insurance corporation will insure 5G. No health insurance company on earth will insure nuclear power. Nuclear power is uninsured. It's underwritten by the governments. Us, basically, we get to pay for the suffering that we get to experience if there's a problem with it. Okay? Now, the same's going for 5G. That none of it is going to be insured. So we get to pay through our government for any impacts it starts to have on us. It's uninsured. I mean, we're not allowed to drive without insurance, are we? So why are these going to be allowed to be on every street corner with no insurance? Public health and safety, public liability, no insurance. This is, like I say, this is serious. And there does come a time where you need to wake up, where you need to be alert and actually get active, you see. So Brexit is a huge distraction at the moment, and that was the whole point of it, really, while using it as a subterfuge to remove all our rights and our environmental protection, health and safety laws, and just so many things. We're dealing with a very, very nasty, vicious savage here. A savage in a suit who thinks he's civilised and is the top dog. We need to explain that, look, I'm sorry, mate, we're not dogs.